Welcome back, everybody, to Let's Play Neutopia for the TurboGrafx 16-bit. Last time, we finished up the first labyrinth and gained a few new tools, and today we're heading off into the second labyrinth and the last labyrinth of the first overworld section of the game. So, yeah, not gonna waste much more time with these guys. Let's just head right up here and get ourselves started. So this dungeon does introduce a new trap that we will be expecting throughout most of the game, or the course of the playthrough, that is. And that is the trap blocks. One thing I do kind of like is that they color code which blocks these are, but it's subtle enough to where, like, it's definitely something you want to keep a second eye out for so you don't end up getting too reckless. And as much as I like praising the game for that, the game itself does not always follow this rule, unfortunately, especially once we hit late game, and that quite frankly pisses me off, but we'll be going into further detail as to why that is once we hit that point in the game. So, it's just gonna push this block right here. Good old classic Zelda 1 block puzzle solving goodness. Alright, so it looks like we're definitely gonna need our own fair share of bombs here to make any worthwhile progress here. And I do believe you can also get other bomb grades as well. I just don't think we're going to be running into any until we hit the second overworld, at least. At least as far as I'm concerned, anyway. In fact, actually, we should probably be heading over here, because that is where our dungeon item is, and I'm not going to be missing out on a single one of those. No sirree, Bob. And I want to make good, fair use out of all of the ones I stumble across. I definitely like the fire wand more in this game than the second one for sure, because I don't know what the hell it is with most of the projectile weapons in Neutopia 2, but they have this nasty habit of where if you accidentally strike the opponent out of its invincibility frames from the wrong angle, they can accidentally end up like launching towards your direction, and you end up taking unnecessary damage. And yeah, you can imagine something like that would very easily piss me off, for sure. And luckily, Neutopia 1 doesn't have that issue for the most part, I feel like. But I'll be going into further detail with that once I hit Neutopia 2. But that's something I want to throw towards Neutopia 1's way as far as compliments are concerned over its sequel. And I will be sure to give those as I come. Man, everything just happens to be over in this side of the dungeon, huh? Won't lie, like, I don't really remember, like, the dungeon layouts too well. I am kind of mostly winging it for the most part. Did I just use most and twice in the same sentence? Whatever, we got the crystal ball, who cares? So, I do believe we need to head over here, because that is where our big key is, and we can't make any due progress without a big Keegan. Yeah, in fact, I think we might have to bomb this wall to our left here. Let's do that. Luckily, the residue from the boom bombs doesn't affect us to any degree, so don't be afraid to stand next to them if you're using them to, like, fight or combat opponents, if you will. So, now that I feel like I've officially hit that point in the playthrough to some degree, I do want to talk about my biggest problem with Neutopia's combat, and that is the hurt boxes. Oh goodness! So I don't feel like this game should have had bigger sprites than Zelda 1 at all. And especially with the kind of limited movement and, like, combat threat zones that you have, because there are points where I want to hit my opponent this way, or whatever, and Jazetta's big ass head just gets in the way of hitting said opponents, and you have to kind of like time your shots a lot more effectively too, because in Zelda 1 you're like a one block side sprite. So like if you're facing an opponent like left or right or up or down or whatever, like you were facing them with all of your might, like you were covering that entire threat zone in front of you. But with Jazetta, the problem with fighting this way is that you're basically leaving his head unprotected, and this means you have to constantly reposition yourself to hit opponents. And considering the fact that this game doesn't have consistent sprite sizes and there are enemies that are smaller than others, this gets kind of annoying really fast. And this especially gets evident too whenever we start fighting smaller enemies that happen to be a lot more aggressive than the ones we're fighting currently, for sure. And it turns into a real big pain in the ass real fast. And luckily for us, Neutopia does fix this issue somewhat, but we'll be talking about the specifics as for why it does so when we hit Neutopia. I don't want to spoil everything about Neutopia 2 in this one playthrough, for certain. Though it is objectively the better game. But anyway. Okay, ow. You see what happened there? Like, if I were Link and I were hitting this area, like, I would have gotten hit if I was hitting this block, okay? And then, like, Jazetta's big-ass head just gets in the way and triggers it, and it's... Yeah, it starts becoming a real big issue once the trap blocks become even more annoying in the late game, for certain, and I don't like that at all. In fact, actually, now that I think about it, this is actually the, yeah, this is the boss door, isn't it? Yeah. Let's head back, actually. In fact, let's use our wings in return. Let's put those to good use. Might as well show them off while we're at it. So I do believe we have a healer down here. Well, now we definitely have to have one. You can also use the flame wand here to burn trees and stuff down. And while this seems obvious, it's not quite as obvious once we hit the later overworlds, for certain. Some of the stuff you can burn with the flame wand is quite questionable, to say the least. But we'll get to that when we get to that. I am speaking in hyperbole way too much in this playthrough. Oh my god. And I can barely pronounce half of it too. Oh my goodness. I don't know if that's my like thought process. That's really the core issue of it all, or if it's just like me talking way too much. I couldn't tell you. As is all things in life, you gotta keep everything in moderation. And it feels like you can probably apply that to almost everything in life. God damn, is the fire wand awesome. Love it. I loves it. Loves it to pieces. Alright, so this looks like an obviously bombable wall. Yeah, what the hell? I should have came up here first. I would have probably saved myself a lot more time if I did. Oh my god. Okay, so one thing I really hate about Neutopia that even Zelda 1 doesn't do is that every time you exit and re-enter a dungeon, the highlighted rooms of which you've been through already, they reset for whatever inexplicable reason. I don't really quite understand the logic behind that at all, and it really incentivizes that you try to go through these dungeons in one run, unfortunately. Otherwise, you're going to forget everything, and you have to go through the dungeon and refigure everything out again, because this isn't like modern Zelda games where all of these rooms have like their own like little flavor to it. You see like different layouts here and there that definitely end up hitting the repeat button every now and then. And while it's not quite as severe as Zelda 1, where I feel like the same 7 or 8 rooms get repeated in every single dungeon. Like, once you've seen levels 1 and 2, you've basically seen the room layouts for all of the dungeons, more or less. Neutopia 1 at least has a bit more personality as far as that's concerned, but it's still not perfect in under any capacity at all. Though I guess it helps that the dungeons are a bit more, like, logically branched out, as opposed to just kind of, like, it being, like, multiple branch paths and not all of them lead to anywhere. Because, you know, I don't think Zelda 1 really got the concept down of what makes a good dungeon good or a bad dungeon bad. They just kind of threw ideas at the wall and just stuck with whatever worked. And, you know, I guess you can kind of apply that to Neutopia 1 as well, but not quite to the same degree. Like, yeah, I know, I do recognize that Zelda 1 is the more innovative game, obviously. Like, I don't even really need to make an essay as to why that is. But, like, in my honest opinion, like, I don't enjoy games for the innovation most of the time. At the end of the day, I play the games I play because I find them fun. And in my honest opinion, I find Neutopia, like, even though Neutopia 1 isn't nearly as innovative as Zelda 1, I think the game is a lot more fun to play than Zelda 1, in my honest opinion. Like, you can come at me all you want, but god damn it, in spite of its faults, I definitely think that Neutopia 1 is an infinitely more polished game than Zelda 1 is under any capacity. So, up here's the boss. I can't believe I didn't notice that at first. It doesn't even have a lock on it, for that matter. But of course, we have to end up beating up all of these guys first before we can even really do anything, which sucks. And of course, you can actually use your sword to pick up items that are far away too. But unfortunately for us, we don't have a projectile that can help us pick up said items. So, anywho, this guy is our next boss. It's more or less a waiting game. You gotta wait for this dude to split up, and then he hit the core a few times, and that's all she wrote. Like, yeah, the bosses are pretty simple, but for the time, I'd like to say these bosses are pretty involved for the most part. At least compared to games of the 80s, that is. And I appreciate for Neutopia for taking the small steps forward, even if they are kind of minuscule compared to, like, a lot of 16-bit bosses. Gotta give the game credit where credit is due, because you gotta remember, this game came out a year before the SNES did, and the fact that, like, it was before 16-bit games really had a major influence on the market. Because even with the Sega Genesis coming out in '89, like, nobody was quite ready to hit, like, the new console generation just yet. Like, this was before the whole idea of evolving game consoles, you know, even really came into play. And I don't think, you know, society was quite ready for that shift just yet. And once the SNES came by and not only supercharged the graphics, but the gameplay as well, I think that kind of speaks for itself. Because, like, despite this being a 16-bit game, this game is still very much in a core fundamental way an 8-bit game. And you can kind of tell that from the music, because the weird thing about the TurboGrafx 16 is that despite the fact that it has a 16-bit graphics processor, the sound channel is 8-bit. It has an 8-bit, like, it has an 8-bit sound chip. It's the most bizarre thing to me, especially since the Sega Genesis. Like, I get the Sega Genesis a lot of crap for having this weird twangy, like, sound chip. But I think the TurboGrafx 16 can be a little bit more offensive in its own regard, because it didn't even make the effort to evolve the sound chip. Coming from, like, the 8-bit console generation, you know? Wow, game. Nice subtle effect in trying to make the screen darker than usual. Ha! But yeah, this is the second overworld, and this here is the underworld. This would probably be more fitting for a final area, if I had to be honest, but whatever. Oh, shut the front door. Let's go. I definitely needed that. So yeah, not only do we have monks that give us better vitality, we have monks that can give us more bombs as well. So definitely be on the lookout for that for sure. And of course, if you haven't already noticed earlier, sometimes not only pushing blocks and burning things is the way to go to find secrets, you also want to beat enemies on a screen to make sure if there isn't a secret towed away somewhere. Okay, so it looks like our first labyrinth isn't that far away from here. That's kind of convenient. So, remember how I had talked about earlier how the flame rod can affect really random things in the later overworld? Yeah. I think that speaks for itself. So, this is, like, despite the crap that I gave, you know, Zelda 1 for having, like, cryptically bombable locations, like, I don't find this nearly as offensive, but come on. This definitely kind of hits the stride a little bit too far in some cases as well, but at least you're not running on a finite resource here. And since you're actually using a projectile, it takes way less time to scavenge through these hidden areas as opposed to like bombing areas and then risking the fact that you could run out of bombs way earlier than you probably should have. So I think we're going to make our way over to the next labyrinth first and beat that place before we head over to the last checkpoint we need to save our game before starting up the next part. And plus, we're only 17 minutes in. I mean, we've been making pretty good progress, so why not? Yeah, again, like, these NPCs are way more helpful than the ones in Zelda 1 are. And I do kind of, like, give credit to the translation, like, being pretty good. Like, honestly, for a game that came out in 1990, the translation is pretty coherent for what it is. Like, I don't really have any complaints. Like, yeah, I guess it could use more character, but it's very straight-laced. It doesn't have a whole lot of nonsense out of the dialogue that makes you cringe. It's pretty much straight to the point, and it's pretty clear about it, too. Like, if you're playing this game for the first time, you definitely don't need a guide, because these NPCs do more than enough to help you on the journey, for sure. Oh, what's this? Okay. So this here is Moonbeam Boss. Moss. What are you saying? So, this here is the not candle of Zelda 1. But unlike Zelda 1 and a very clearly missed opportunity, that is, the Moonbeam Moss only really functions as a way to light up dark rooms, and that's really about it. You can't even use it in combat, which I think kind of sucks, but I can kind of see why they thought to do something like this, considering the fact that you have a flame rod, and it has fire. Do I really need to spell it out for you? Okay. Cool. But yeah, like, they could have, like, at least turned it into, like, some kind of grapple tool or something. Something a little bit more exciting, you know? Like, I don't want the flame rod doing everything for me, and it just doesn't help that most of the items you get are simply, like, progression tools as opposed to stuff you can use as a secondary combat function. Alright, will do. Oh man, these enemies fall prey pretty quickly to the flame rod. Holy crap. Not gonna be like that for much longer though. I'm gonna say that much. Ah, crap. Okay, so we don't need to be in here. Let's check out the area down here. Let's see. lot of money drops, but no cherries. What the hell? Okay, but I do believe we are definitely heading in the right direction, though. Okay, thank God. Can we get another cherry? Probably not, but I'm gonna check anyway. At least we're getting a lot of gold. Like, stacking up on potions isn't gonna be too terribly difficult. Yeah, you see this? You see these small enemies, and you see how aggressive they are? Yeah, this is where the limited threat zone of your sword and, like, giant hurt box really comes into play of messing up the experience a fair bit. Okay. I'm probably gonna save my money for some potions. I don't think I need that for right now. Oh boy, it's up here. Huh. See, I'm kind of working off of muscle memory and it's not helping so far. Oh god. Well, he didn't take long to convince at all. A hanging stalactite to the south. Oh, okay. Oh, wait, what? Oh, shoot. I probably should have let her talk. You can skip most messages, but you can't skip all of them. Alright, so... I hate that she's a fair bit away from the dungeon. That kind of blows. Okay, definitely need that. Oh boy. I actually really don't know where I'm going, do I? Yeah, I already got that. Okay. Yeah, we should probably be focusing more on actually fighting the dungeon. Because I've already got, like, 2 upgrades here already. It would just help if I actually had a dungeon to find and use those upgrades in. Oh boy. Please get away from me. Okay, so we're definitely on the right track because the compass adjusted itself a little. So we need to head more within the direction of over here. Okay. Alright, so I need the HUD up, actually. It does kind of suck that Neutopia doesn't have, like, a gray blob for a map to kind of pinpoint exactly where you are in the overworld. Like, yeah, like, the map in Zelda 1 wasn't detailed at all. But, like, at the very least, it told you where you were in the overworld, and Neutopia doesn't really have that benefit going for it, unfortunately. Okay, yeah, alright, awesome, awesome, awesome. Why didn't I go this way before? Alright, I know for sure where the dungeon is now. Awesome. I'm not happy about that. I wanted that bomb, damn it. Cool. Alright, so I think I spent a little too much time bumbling around in the overworld, but next time, hopefully there will be less bumbling and more progression. So next time on Let's Play Neutopia for the ToberGrafx 16-bit, we're going to be heading into the 3rd labyrinth of the game, so see you guys then.